UAP, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers in origin, or are they simply a result of top-secret military projects? False flag alien invasion psyops, drones, or other human-made aircraft. Join the discussion now on UAP Crossfire.
Well, welcome, greatest audience on the planet, to UAP Crossfire. The gang is all here tonight, and since we're probably going to run right up against the wall tonight, I just want to start what I normally close with, and that will be God's peace surpassing all knowledge and understanding. And after this show, you may be asking for God's peace, because it is going to probably shake up a few more times before we get to the end of the show. Let's go around the horn real quickly. Chris, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this show. I think we're going to have a great time. I put my nickname in there. I love that nickname, Devil Dog. I hope I spelled devil right. But
well, we have an expert in the room that will do your spell check for you in a second.
Yeah, give me one of those. I still didn't win the lottery yet, but I'm hoping one of these days.
Hey, I shout out numbers. You don't pay attention to me, so that's how that goes.
Well, you don't give the blessing. The Padre, we know he works. He brought my mic back. Okay, so he's one and one. I'm just waiting for the second one to see if he's in the lost column or the win column.
I don't know if you guys can see this. Okay, but that's my left shoulder right now.
Wow, look at all that metal.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like those lag screws up into the collarbone area.
Yeah. Cyborg.
So kind of fun to see what happens as the chips take over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I'm sure the TSA is going to just reserve a room for me every time I fly. They want to look everywhere.
They can be some pretty nice people, and they're probably going to be in a good mood when they see you.
Oh,
speaking of seeing people and being in a good mood, Decker, how are you?
Oh, I'm just today finer than frog hair. Doing okay.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask our great producer, the GA, the guardian angel, Amanda, to pop up the Artemis splashdown. Now I have to tell the audience, I have, as a kid growing up, 60s and 70s, space program was a big deal. I absolutely loved seeing this come back. But the other part I want to share is I loved how my phone blew up, starting with Decker, about Artemis, successful mission coming around, and what a triumph it is that NASA is back in the business of exploring and doing that they overcame all their little setbacks and problems, and a backed up plumbing system on something the size of a large van. That's pretty sporty stuff going on there. There's some really, really, if you're into that kind of humor, the stuff that talks about what happened during the Apollo program and others, there's some really funny stuff that occurred off the books. So, thoughts, gentlemen, as we look at a few more pictures of Artemis. Decker, what do you think? Lead us off.
I want to see some close-ups of the backside of the moon. That's what I want to see. When they went around the moon, and I was glued to the TV. I watched the thing almost from start to finish. I was hoping, and then I kind of figured that's probably not going to happen, but I was hoping they would zoom in. And they got some close-up photography of that. Now, the big question is, are they going to release any of it? Because I think you guys all know what I suspect. On some part of the far side of the moon, there are installations there, not human installations, but installations. And NASA, or at least parts of NASA, I believe, are very well aware of that. And it would be very interesting if they would release any of those photographs, but I don't expect they will.
All right, hold that, because I want to come back to that. Padre, your thoughts on Artemis?
I remember when man first set foot on the moon, how my mother had gotten us all out of bed and we were there in front of the 19-inch black and white TV. And she was so emotional about watching that. And ever since then, every time something happens, I mean, it was the same way for me when the space shuttle first touched down. I got choked up then, and then to see this again, it's moving to see what we can accomplish. And I do share the astronaut sentiments. When you're out there and you see the blue marble there in a sea of blackness, how as a species, we really do have to do better to care for one another and care for this planet. I know it's popular to say that the universe is teeming with life, and even now we've become a 7-Eleven on the corner of the next space civilization, but it's pretty lonely when you're way out there. But I have a question for you, Commander, because you're our avionics and aviation specialist. It seems to me we are not landing the astronauts any differently than we have from the start. Why do we land in the ocean? Can you explain that to us?
So the ocean recovery allows probably for the safest recovery. If you ever watched back to the days of the Soviets, they would land their capsules back on the landmass because they didn't have access to ocean, easy ocean access. So they had to create a capsule that had more speed retarding and cushioning devices. So you had more parachutes. You had to have that stuff work. Then you have to put these inflation bags underneath them. And even some of the U.S., Canadian, and other non-Russian astronauts with cosmonauts, when they were going to the International Space Station with the Russian capability, they landed back on terra firma. So that's a much more complex, and it restricts a lot of other parts going on. It affects now how you put a reentry vehicle together, because then your heat shield has to compensate for all the other things that you're going to have come up with that for that reentry period. Oh, ultimately, the way to do this would be to have something that goes like the Elon Musk rockets, where you go up into the space station or a space station-like activity. And then from there, you get on the rocket that's going to fly to the moon. Come back, disembark at the space station, and take your shuttle type thing back down. Obviously, I thought the shuttle was a terrible loss. We should have kept going with it. We haven't got Dream Chaser and the other vehicle, but we do have vehicles that are very small that can afford this. And obviously, what SpaceX is doing really makes this very, very probable. I don't think right now any of the Artemis capsules are recyclable. I don't think they plan on putting them back into space. I would be surprised if they are. And of course, the staging and the landing is the big part, because you have to have that command module behind it where you're going to have your lander and to do that. So now that we're shifting to talking about to get to Mars, we have to go back and colonize the moon. I think that's the right move. I wish it didn't take us close to 40 years to get to this point, but that's where we're at. So, Chris, what do you think on Artemis?
I think you put something in my head. I can't get it out. How they deal with the plumbing problem? Can you imagine, like, the toilet being stuck, and the guy does a number 2 and goes, "Dude, what'd you eat, man? Holy crap!"
Well, I don't know if you, Chris, do you remember the early Gemini and Apollo missions? And then they would show the fragment when they went to the moon to land the first time. That was the first real long mission.
Yeah,
you have to go back and look at those old films, and the fragment that comes up and opens up and opens it up. You have to watch his face, how bad it smelled inside that cabin.
Yeah, that's what I think. And let me ask you a question. Do they, like, when they flush the toilet, does that stuff like go out in space?
No, generally it doesn't.
I was just thinking, man, there's a lot of turds running around. You know, can you imagine some saucer flying by and it hitting their windshield?
That's what I love. We're always so classy when we do this
Classy
show. I mean,
and highbrow. You know, we need to bring the show down more to the common person. You know, that would be interested in it.
He put it in my head. I was like, what do they do about this plumbing problem?
So you have to, I mean, if you've never been responsible for setting up like a remote site or an expeditionary site, or if you never camped, this is a huge issue. Now, on longer range missions, they'll actually recycle parts of what's going on. You'll run through filtration and bring back, but there's a balance that has to be done there. They don't automatically expel things. They don't really incinerate it. Those are all possible things that you can do, but you don't have the ability to just throw it out over the side easily, because that means you have to have ports to do that. You have to have pumps to do that. And then you run the risk that when you open something like that up, it doesn't close. Now what do you do?
So like that.
Well, you can't re-enter. I mean, you're laughing, Project, but you can't re-enter the atmosphere because now your spacecraft is compromised because a door didn't close.
So you're right about the need.
Put the lid down. In other words, put the lid down.
Obviously, when Padre joins Chris on the highbrow side, and Decker and I left defending the faith, you know, that the show's taken a completely
there's probably listeners that want to know about that.
Well, that's what the Internet of Things are for, not this show.
It was Decker who started out the conversation with backsides and moons. By the way, you had the email address there to send them.
I mean, the other thing is how they fix it. They said they fixed it. I mean, what did they bring a plunger along or what?
Space plunger.
No, the female crew member is supposedly the one
I don't want to hear this.
No, really, she's the one that got it working again.
I believe she's the mechanical engineer in the crew.
Whatever.
She's Mr. Scott of Artemis.
I could just see them up there with a plunger going, damn thing. Jesus.
I'm not sure how well that would work in low gravity to zero gravity. I don't think plunging is a big operation that you want to get involved in. I'm just, probably being funny.
Throwing it out there. You see, you're coming down to our level now. That's really scary.
Well, with that happy news said, Padre, you had a contribution for tonight.
Yeah, well, we were talking about in recent weeks about the number of people who have been disappearing, who've been affiliated with top secret propulsion programs and astrophysics and so forth. And now we have another name to add to the list, Stephen Garcia, age 48. He vanished without a trace August 28, 2025, was last seen leaving his Albuquerque, New Mexico home on foot, carrying only a handgun. So again, here we see, as was the case with the woman, Melissa Cassius, who disappeared, and also the General McCaslin, all of these individuals who are missing seem to take a handgun but leave pretty much everything else behind. Now, Mr. Garcia was a government contractor for the Kansas City National Security Campus. And this is the facility that makes about 80% of the non-nuclear components that go into our nuclear weapons. And he's been missing now for a few years, but his name is added to these interrelated lists of people who've gone missing because Mr. Garcia's Kansas City National Security Campus is also affiliated with the Air Force Research Laboratory at Kirkland Air Force Base, which was overseen by General McCaslin and also related in work connections to Melissa Cassius and Anthony Chavez, who was a former employee of the Los Alamos National Laboratory. And so when you put all this into a diagram, you come up with something that looks as though they're all connected directly or indirectly in the field of work of propulsion systems in space and alternative energy. So that is what we know thus far. No trace of him since that day. I'll throw it back to you guys for comment.
Well, Decker, what do you think?
The very first time you asked me my impression of this, I told you, this stinks to high heaven. I am almost totally convinced that this is a group of people that were targeted by groups or persons unknown for whatever reason unknown. But look, it to me it just smells that there's something nefarious going on here. I also mentioned the last time that you guys all remembered from the United Kingdom back in the 80s. They had a group of scientists that mysteriously died, disappeared, around roughly 20 in number. Never, ever a good reason about what any of that was, what it meant, what it foretold. I think this is similar, Cobra.
I agree. You bring a couple really good points. I'm going to come back with another question in 1 second. Chris, my other law enforcement background person here.
Well, the first thought I thought was, and I kind of agree with some of what Decker was saying, that there's a possibility of some abductions. Then I saw Anthony Chavez. He was a security guard, right? Am I correct on that?
Security specialist.
Security specialist. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, without knowing further about Anthony, I was thinking, okay, a security specialist, he's not really producing anything. He might be have stuff available to him, or he might be able to have access to stuff, but he wouldn't be working on the stuff. So, I mean, you can't rule it out that he might have been, working on the other side, maybe getting information. So you got to keep that in the back of the mind on some of this. But here's the thing that I say, and I'm going to wrap it up. They're all a lot of them are taking a gun with them, and they're all leaving stuff that they can't be traced. So somebody could be saying, "Hey, listen, we got a problem. We need to get you somewhere where you're safe and stuff." Because in an abduction, they're not going to let you know that you're being abducted. I mean, you would have your wallet would be gone, your watch would be gone. Those people would throw those stuff out, and then we would find it. We would put a track on their, if they had a smartwatch or a cell phone. Because if you're walking down the street, a van comes up, snatches you off the street, you still got your wallet, you still got your cell phone and everything. Immediately they would grab that stuff and throw it out. They don't care if we find it on a street corner. And that's how that works. So with them leaving stuff at home, like McCaslin did and some of the others, that makes me think that, these guys probably got a heads up, got to put you someplace until we find out what the hell's going on. You got to remember, we had a lot of people in this country that shouldn't be here.
All right, so let me kind of get your take on it. Who here thinks this is ET snatching these people? Anybody? Because I don't get that. I'm not getting that vibe. I don't get this as the typical missing 400 vibe thing going on here at all. This seems much more into the category they're either being abducted or they are part of an escape plan. This is a get out of the jam kind of thing. This, to me, I told you last couple of weeks we've talked about it. I have the feeling that this is very much like the Cold War era spy. I'm not saying these people are spies, don't misunderstand me, but when the spy would activate their plan to get out, when they're being compromised or they're being told, go to the safe house, this is what you need to do, bring these things with them, go to this spot, get into this vehicle, someone will come up and show you. And the security specialist that's in the middle of this, perfect person to be a courier, perfect person that would have the face recognition that people would need to be seen, could play that role. Because not everybody's a super scientist, not everybody's a super engineer. There's a lot of people that have to do, quote unquote, the grunt work. Drive the cars, get people to the places, make sure the rents are paid on safe houses. All those kinds of things have to be done. Unplug the toilet in space or on the planet. Those things have to be done. So back to you, Decker. Do you think that this is orchestrated, that these people are participating in their own escape plan, or do you think they're being snatched for whatever reason, or is it a combination?
Well, it's probably a combination, but the people that were seen, like McCaslin, leaving the house carrying only his firearm, not carrying his wallet, his smartwatch, his cell phone. That told me right at the very top of the hour that this guy was probably trying to disappear. Now, why is he disappearing? That's the big question for me. Is it a coordinated effort by foreign intelligence services? If so, who, why, where, when? I mean, look at what's going on right now with the situation in the Middle East, all the chaos surrounding that, all the chaos right now within the borders of the United States. It's quite frankly, I think it's a scary time, Commander.
No disagreement there. All right, here's the question I'm going to phrase. I'll start with a phrase up, then I'm going to start with the Padre. When you look at this going on, and we have these people disappearing, what I'm not seeing is any kind of change. Now, I don't deal or work around people that would be involved in this, but I'm not seeing a big change in security postures, things going on. Even from where I work, I haven't seen a great increase in security posture change, which surprises me, frankly. So I'm going to ask each of you to answer this. Are these people disappearing because our president returning to the White House and now announcing the release, and we're going to get to the bottom of this, and it's going to come up through the rest of the show as well. Do you think this was a trigger for people who were either could be leakers that could be witnesses to what's been going on, or they are part of the cabal that they had to get out of Dodge quickly? Do you think Donald J. Trump's announcement has any part in this rash of disappearances? Because that's another line, a timeline that isn't getting pressed against this very much, but it's interesting when all this occurred. Padre, I'll start with you.
No, a one-word answer to what you're putting forth there, Commander. I'm still torn about this. The reason I say no is because several of these 10 individuals went missing or were killed prior to Mr. Trump coming into office in his second term. But of the 10, 3 are dead. 2 of the dead, Frank Malwald and Carl Grillmere, they were both top scientists involved in the search for extraterrestrial life. Mr. Malwald was a scientist who was specializing in detecting life signs, and Mr. Grillmere was in charge of developing telescopes to help us find inhabitable planets. Both of those men are dead. And then the other person who is dead, Michael David Hicks, he was working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory on deflecting asteroids from Earth. As for the other 7, the ones that are missing, I still wonder if, and maybe I've seen too many movies, if these individuals have been summoned for something, either to help prepare the messaging and how to present disclosure, or they've been summoned as a part of a security need to protect them from foreign agents. For example, in this article from which we're getting a lot of this information from the Daily Mail, they interviewed FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker, and he told the Daily Mail, quote, "Our scientists have been targeted for a long time, especially in the rocket propulsion area, by hostile foreign intelligence services." So to your point, Commander, it tells us that the FBI has been aware of the threat to these types of people for some time, but also, to your point, apparently not an elevated security posture that we know of, unless something was breaking and they said, we got to pull these people in someplace safe. That's my view.
Chris?
Well, one thing that comes to mind, what the Padre said and stuff, the Trump family has been talking about UFOs for quite some time now. The daughter comes on, or I should say the daughter-in-law comes on and says, yeah, there's a speech already made up, and geez, we talked about this. Donald Trump Jr. comes on, starts his own podcast, has UFO people on, admits that he's talked to his father about it, that his father was interested in the subject, although he's publicly come out and said that he doesn't really believe in it, but he definitely talked to his son about it. Now, all of you know that nothing comes out of any government agency without somebody approving it. I mean, it's very rare. So now you got Rubio on not a podcast, but on a documentary talking about it. Even though he walks it back, later, it's still, he knows what he's talking about and stuff. So I think this is all set up. Now, as far as the security posture, I agree with you, Commander. It's kind of funny, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There's definitely, I agree with the Padre when he says there's definitely hostile forces that want our secrets, and they will go to any kind of limits. We know that. Look at what they've done. They've been on military. We've caught Chinese agents on military bases. They've slept with her ex-congressman. Look, they put biolabs, illegal biolabs that nobody knew about. We've raided 2 of them already in this country. They tried to smuggle things in. So I've always said there's a Cold War going on. Now, the question is how far is that Cold War going? Are they snatching our people?
So it's definitely asymmetric warfare. It's been going on a long time. It's the components for drugs being assembled in Central America and shipped up. It's transfer of money, and there's been a seismic shift in all that possibility because of what's gone on in Venezuela, even Nigeria, and of course what's going on in Iran. Decker, let me come to you. Your thoughts on this is a reaction or a co-agent of the return of Donald Trump and the announcements that he's made?
Well, I've often heard it said by quite a few people that if there ever is disclosure, Trump would be the one guy that just might be rogue enough to do it. Okay. Now, some of these deaths and disappearances happened before he came out and made his remarks about releasing all this UFO, UAP information. Okay. But when he did that, when he did come out, he did make that announcement, I could see in my mind's eye the people in the legacy program going back to Roswell, or at least their organization,
Sure,
freaking out. Okay.
right.
And these guys, if they feel that there's a genuine threat to national security, whether they're right, they're wrong, it's indifferent, it doesn't matter. They are the people that I fear would take matters to extreme ends. They have that potential. So I don't discount that it could, in fact, in part, be a reaction to Trump's announcement.
So I'm going to conclude with this, gentlemen. I think all of your positions are very well stated, and I have a share in each one of them. What I wonder and look at this when I look at this whole play, the ones that have been killed outright didn't want to go along or didn't want to stay silent anymore. And the return of Trump from the first administration to this administration may have really set some gears into motion of concern because of the kinds of unrestricted kind of actions that he is prompting out of people on this to reach what he basically ran on and goals. And one more final point, what I think is interesting. If I've learned nothing about this particular president, he'll tell you that he's going to give you 2 weeks, and then we're going to drop bombs in 48 hours. If you don't, we're fighting for a blockade, and now we're blockading because we're going to choke off the ability for the Iranian government, whatever is left of it, to raise funds and make money and make mischief. My point is, if he says he doesn't believe in this, but yet his son is doing a podcast and has featured this quite a bit, his daughter-in-law is doing this, it tells me I'm prepared for anything that he's going to say or announce that's coming up. And as Decker said years back, I said it in his first administration, a lot of people didn't like it. We're the closest to disclosure with this man in the White House for a lot of reasons.
Commander, didn't he make a coin already? I mean, he's already produced a coin.
There's a rumor of a coin. There's a Bitcoin that was created, and that's the other part of this. There's economic parts of this that are coming out, and that's the other thing I find. We always try to strip out all these activities. This is all connected, as we always say. All these things network in, and if we're going to get to the point where a lot is revealed and the horrors of what went on and who allowed what to happen, and all that has to come out. We still have to put gas in our cars until we get our gravity drives. I mean, there's all those things in there, and you don't want the world to dissolve around it. All right. I don't want to, obviously almost every week we're going to probably touch upon this. And I hope to God these abductions and disappearances end. And we get some kind of resolution. And again, a sincere prayer to all the families that are involved in this, that have lost people and are trying to figure out what happened to people. Amanda, our producer, is going to throw up a quick clip. It runs about 3 minutes. We'll probably do about 2 minutes of it, and I'll call for us to react to it.
Before I let you get on out of here, I got one more question to ask you, and I got to transition. This is about UFOs. I couldn't let you out of here without asking you about that. You've said you've seen UFO briefings that would, quote, set the earth on fire, end quote. And you also said publicly, you're not suicidal. That's a serious statement. What exactly are you being told that the American people aren't allowed to hear, sir? About
we go into what's called a skiff, and that's kind of James Bond room. It's lead lined. You can't take a cell phone. You got a Fitbit. I don't, but I've been in those rooms and they'll say, hey, somebody's still getting a signal. Somebody's got a cell phone, and somebody will check their, oh crap, that's my Fitbit. Sorry, it's my whatever. And they have to go out of the room. And we're briefed by the highest level of either our military intelligence, these alphabet agencies, and they tell us things, which again, you've got one group telling you within some of these things that they don't exist. One time this little punk with a freaking man bun. And then you got these military people telling us that something does exist. And I've been briefed and seen pictures and talked enough, but you got to realize too, it's all about the money. And is this a psyop or what? Are they putting this garbage out there so that people will say, gosh, we need to fund these agencies more, and so we can research it more? I'm not into all that. It's not about little green men. It's not about flying saucers, sir. It's about what are they spending tens of maybe billions of your tax dollars on? If it doesn't exist, then why are they studying it? And if it does exist, as I told President Trump the other day, you need disclosure. We need transparency. America can handle it. I'm sick of hearing this stuff. We can't handle it. It's, and I'm a Christian, and they appealed to me on that level. Burchell, this stuff's kind of anti-Christian, and your beliefs. I said, no, it isn't. Genesis 1, God created the heavens and the earth.
What do they look like? What do they look like? Can you tell me? I mean, you've seen Independence Day. You've seen aliens. You've seen a few things. What do they look like? Give me that one.
Well, it's not Independence Day, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Okay. I really want to continue to like the good representative. I really do. but he is starting to get on my nerves just a teeny tiny bit. He just gave disclosure, if you want to be strict on it. He has given disclosure a number of times.
Soft disclosure.
Yes. And then we'll put things out there that he hopes alien life is made public. I've seen the pictures.
Well, in today's climate of AI, Commander, who in the hell can tell what is real and what is fraudulent?
It's an excellent point. But what if you follow this, Decker, and that's a very, very important point. And thank you for making it, because here's the part that I want to say. The reps that have been working on this, and I'll tell you, I have undying loyalty to Representative Luna. I think if anybody's got her head screwed on correctly and is doing stuff right, and if you saw how she handled some of the more recent bomb blasts that went off, figuratively speaking, folks, in the political circles, and she was in the middle of it, and how she laid out her evidence and how things were laid out and the kinds of statements she makes. When she's talking, I really listen up, because I just don't think she's falling for anything. But all this started before AI was at the levels that we at least saw publicly. Doesn't mean that we are seeing 10 years later what's been going on and it was fabricated. And if that's the case, the good representative did kind of allude to that. Where is this money being spent? Why are we spending this money? How is it going? We're going to find out that a lot of the money is being spent. Why we're saying that we're doing this type of research or investigation on different black programs. And those black programs create bunker busters, they create stealth, they create all kinds of other things that are going on. I think that's how we created Tic Tac. You guys know my stand on that. But the first thing I want to ask you is, going around the horn, does anybody else share a little bit of discomfort? I really want to believe this guy, but he's driving me nuts with the tease. We had a thing. I'm sure everybody in the military remembers one of the things they tell you. Don't play I have a secret. Don't tell people I've seen stuff, but I can't tell you what I've seen. The old joke, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. That's becoming not a really funny line anymore when you look at some of the earlier subjects that we talked about, okay? My point is, are you guys having the same kind of discomfort with the good representative, or am I all wet?
Who do you want to start with?
You started talking, you jumped up, you're in the crosshairs.
Okay, well, first of all, I think Stephen Smith did an outstanding job on that podcast. If you listen to the entire podcast, Burchell just lays everything out there about fraud, Congress, both parties. I mean, it was an eye-opening podcast. So I think he just did an exceptional job. Now, come to the thing. He actually alluded to what we talked about on the show before, is that when we find out about UFO disclosure, we're probably going to find out that a lot of money went to fraud, just like we're finding out with all these other programs. I don't think that you're going to get away from it, because we're seeing this program, this congressman, this person, that program, all has a bit of fraud to it. Now, if you're throwing billions of dollars into this thing, there's going to be some fraud. I just think this is one of the biggest things that they're trying to hide. Also, I think they're trying to protect special access programs. As Don has alluded before, they will go to any length to protect some of these programs. So I think Burchell is a little bit, I think he's got to explain himself a little bit more. I think he's putting a tease out like Grush does, Lou Elizondo does. He's falling into that. Well, I can't tell you because I'm still in Congress. I can't tell you because I was told not to say this. That stuff got to go to the side. Got to have somebody come out there. But I think the person that they're waiting for to come out and say it is the president. I think they're all waiting for that guy to stand on the podium and say, here's the deal.
Padre?
There was a statement that he made. I'm not suicidal.
Oh, I'm glad you zeroed in, because that's my next comment.
I also am not suicidal, everybody, but another representative last week made that statement, Eric Burleson, who's from Missouri. And of the three of them, Luna, Burleson, and Burchell, they are the ones who have really been spearheading this on the House side. And I've listened to Mr. Burchell for quite some time in a number of clips and videos and podcasts and so forth. He is a man who is deeply distrustful of, he says, don't even call it the swamp anymore. He says, call DC what it is, the sewer, because what's floating around in there is just crap and a bunch of other unholy things. And I think he really wants and sincerely wants this to come out. But at the same time, I've also heard him say, he has had people come up to him in the Capitol and say, be careful. People are watching you. You better not cross the line. And so, he's under that pressure as well. But as was stated, I think that President Trump gives us the best opportunity for disclosure that we've had in a very long time. And I know Mr. Decker's written a paper saying that he doesn't think it's going to happen at all, but this is our last best chance, I think. And if there's a change in governance in the fall, and then again in 2028, I think we may have lost the opportunity for disclosure.
Decker, your thoughts, sir?
Well, I'm going to go a little different direction. Burchell, who even ever heard of this man before the UFO UAP thing? Okay, other than his district, his home district. He has been out in the public light now for quite a while on this. And I suspect, and believe me, in the UFO field, in the length of time I've been in it, I've seen this phenomena happen time and time again. He's garnered a bit of celebrity. And I suspect, my personal opinion, you can certainly disagree, but I suspect he's gotten to the point where he enjoys the celebrity. He enjoys being interviewed. He enjoys making pronouncements. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. But what I am saying is I think he's glommed onto this, and he will make remarks like we just heard him make a few minutes ago that, I've seen things that would make your hair stand on it. Well, what? What'd you see? Well, I'm sorry, I can't tell you. So that's my take on it.
Can I answer that, Commander, real quick?
Sure.
John, not that I don't disagree with you, but here's the thing about Burchell. And you got to see this interview with Stephen Smith, because he explains, some of the things that are going on, why he's not as popular. Because in order to get on a committee, to chair a committee, you got to raise $2 million. They tell you that. And by the way, you can't do it in Congress, or you got to walk across the street and do it. And if you want to be on a committee, you want to get your name out there, you got to come up with the dough. It's not like you're a good person, we think you should be in this committee or the chair of this committee. No, who makes the money. So one of the problems that he had was that he wasn't going with this. So he was trying to get his name out as much as possible. But he also attacked everything about this government. I mean, he just and he's doing the same thing. And this is where I agree with you. He's doing the same thing that Elizondo did. He's doing the same thing as Grush did, and some of the others. I've seen pictures. I've seen this. I do that. But because of my security clearance, I talked to Lou Elizondo when he was at one of the MUFON sites at Cherry Hill. And he says, I wear a bulletproof vest. When he first came out and started talking about this, he says, I have a Kevlar vest on, and because I have been threatened and stuff. So there's a certain amount that I think all these guys have to draw the line. I think somewhere along the line they have to draw the line and say, you know what, if I go any farther, like the Padre says, you've been warned. You know.
Let me answer that. And just very recently, within the last 2 weeks, I had a very interesting conversation with a friend of mine who had read my paper, reread it several times, this is what he told me, and the thing that had him most fascinated was the concept of an SAP, a special access program. And he said to me, he said, you know, Don, he said, I've wondered something. And I said, yeah, what? He said, look, he said, all these whistleblowers the last several years that have come forward, he said, you know that some of those people had to have been involved at some level with ultra top secret projects that were surrounded by an SAP. And they've gone forward. And guess what? They're not dead. They're not disappeared. They're not arrested. They're not in jail. Now, I thought about that for a moment, and I thought, you know, by God, he's got something there worth exploring. And I wanted to bring it up to you guys to see what your thought processes were regarding the SAP. Now, the SAP, we all know, that's potent stuff, okay? That's potent stuff. And even acknowledging a program that's protected by an SAP, even if you say no comment, that under federal statute is a violation of federal law. So what my friend said about all these whistleblowers coming forward, and yet apparently no repercussions at all, at least that we could see, with the possibility of Grush, who had his medical records leaked. What do you guys think about that? Commander?
Yes. What I mean by that is, Don, SAP programs and how they operate, you're dead correct. You're right on the spot. There are some things you're not even supposed to make a facial reaction to when you go on there. There are programs that occurred during World War II that are locked under an SAP style thing that are not going to be released or talked about for another 25 or 35 years. And it wouldn't surprise me at the last minute they'll extend it again. Now, there is a curious thing that people come out and say this. I got to tell you, I'd love to meet Lou, but I don't want to meet Lou because Lou looks like, to me, an operative. He looks like somebody who's playing the games, that he's been outed, stuff that I found in the open press about how it's operating, how it's going, wearing the bullet.
Well, yeah, I told you how he strung me along.
Right. I mean, it doesn't, the only thing that makes sense to me is that you have different camps that are fighting and competing. You have reps that are coming out saying, I'm not suicidal. And I'm going to say that every other interview that you hear, because I'm not going to have an accident. I'm not going to, find myself wrapped around a tree with my shoes outside the car. That kind of, accidents and suicides and things that happen. So I think you have fighting forces within this. And I think the thing that's really putting the pressure up is that you have, and it's going to lead us right into our next section, is Trump is he the reason? Is he the only one? Does he want to be the person that does this? Now, before we answer that, I want to give everybody a shot to respond to Decker's remark. Padre?
Concerning the special access programs? Yep. Oh, no doubt that they exist.
No, not saying they exist, but the inconsistencies of some people that aren't being bagged up and put into prison, and others that are that seem to disappear are taken away.
Well, Washington is a place where if you are not of some value to somebody, or you don't have something on somebody else, you're vulnerable to be taken out. And who knows where that line is? Is it simply because you know something and they can't risk that? Or are they monitoring, everything you do, which we basically know they are? And when they start to see a few markers indicating that you might be putting something out there from a SAP or a skiff or something you shouldn't, maybe you get a visit in the hallway like Mr. Burchell has, from people saying, you be careful, we're watching. And then you have to go out and you have to make a special point of saying, I am a careful driver. I am not suicidal. Mr. Elizondo, he almost lost him on March 24th, 3 weeks ago, same day I was having my shoulder surgery. He says he swerved to hit a deer out here, not far from where I live. He lives out this way. And he sustained multiple serious injuries, broken bones.
Well, let's also be upfront. The dumbass wasn't wearing a helmet on a motorcycle. What a dumbass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, was this a CIA trained deer that specifically targeted him and ran in front of him? Was this an alien hologram deer, or was it simply a guy who wasn't wearing a helmet who had a close encounter with a 4-footed kind?
So this is a guy who fears for his life wearing a bulletproof vest, riding a motorcycle out in Dakota, and unable to control a vehicle and not hit a deer. Sorry, there's way too much. I just don't buy this guy. All right. Yeah. Chris, any reaction to that? Because I want to move into.
Well, I will tell you, Padre. I laugh at the deer, but then I remembered the CIA actually put listening devices in cats.
Right. What?
So they did.
They attempted. I mean, it didn't work out too well. The idea was that they would drop the cats over the Berlin Wall and let them go to embassies, and they had all this kind of stuff. Yep. If you haven't been to the Spy Museum, great stuff there.
Have you heard my cats in the litter box? That's disgusting.
Well, tonight we have talked more about poop in so many different dimensions. Artemis,
I didn't bring it up.
DC.
I just said about listening devices.
Now we're into litter boxes.
So, anyways, what was the question? I got.
You know what? We're gonna just move along.
No, give me the question.
No. We're gonna move on because it'll feed into this next piece well, and you'll be able to jump in.
Okay.
That throws me off because he says in these Stephen Hayes, and I got to be honest with you, I don't particularly like Mr. Hayes. I don't particularly like his style. He did an outstanding job with that interview. I saw that interview, and they really gelled nicely, and there was a lot of stuff. And I think the good representative is trying to link all of this is connected together. There's some of it that it's obviously subterfuge that's going on, so I get all that. What do you think on that remark? Now, in contrast to the earlier remark that, hey, we can handle it. It's not a problem. I'm a Christian. I don't see this as being the problem. And now it's going to unglue the nation. Do these people not have the ability to go back and at least walk back their remarks? Earlier, I said this.
My premise of a core secret that is so unnerving that it had the military totally freaked out, and we're talking circa 1947-48.
Well, maybe that's what Burchell is alluding to. Maybe you're actually saying the same thing Burchell is. Maybe this is something.
Then what changed? What changed on the Stephen B. the Hayes interview?
What do you mean?
He said in the Hayes interview, I don't care. We need to have this come out. I'm a Christian. I don't feel threatened on this. The country won't fall apart. I've heard it for years. And then you have this kind of a statement. This is the kind of inconsistency.
But every one of them, But every one of them, Commander, is flip-flopped. I mean, if you look at the history of everybody, the only guy who hasn't flip-flopped was Bob Lazar.
And I'm going to say Luna. Luna remains pretty consistent.
Yeah, but remember what Luna said. Luna says they never, when she went in the skip and came out, they never mentioned extraterrestrials. The only word they used was interdimensional. And think about that. Suppose this is all interdimensional. Suppose this is all about stuff that we can't control, we can't stop, and everything going on. I mean, it's different.
If it wasn't interdimensional, we can't stop it and we don't have control of it. So I mean, if that's the buzzword of the month, interdimensionality, it sounds a lot like diversity. Okay, great. Let's go with that. I mean, this stuff is Madison Avenue think tanked out what words to put out, how they're doing it, and they're feeding it to them. I get all that. That's not my point. How is that different if it's interdimensionality? How is that anything different than someone crossing space in a different and time in a different?
Because everybody has, just like we here argue about different points, and we have different opinions. Lou's opinion may be different from Burchett's. Burchett's may be different from Burleson. Now, I will tell you here, and I think Don has said it, I really, truly believe there is something that's devious about this whole UFO thing, that there are people that are in the know who say this is going to cause panic. Now, we have seen through history that when people really think an alien invasion's happening or really think something crazy is going on, there's nutcases come out and do weird things. And can you imagine?
As opposed to what else, Chris? I mean, right now, all it takes is the sun to rise in the east, and that's triggering somebody. So I'm not thinking this is the one that we're seeing. This is driving people any crazier on this.
I like I said, I think there's something in this thing that is devious. I think there's something in this where somebody's going to say, "Hey, listen, this is the end of the world. This is going to be, affecting my children, my grandchildren, whatever." I just think there's something to this whole UFO malarkey that says we're going to have a problem if we let this out. I think Trump is going to let it out. I really think he goes, you know what? I'm going to put it out there.
All right. So
I'll tell you, don't for 1 second also think that this little show, the four of us, okay, that somebody is not surveilling us every damned week, because we have hit on some very sensitive topics. And if I know the intelligence groups the way I knew them 50 years ago in Vietnam, they're keeping an eye on us.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to return. We're going to start off with the key. Is Trump the key? And I have a setup for you guys on the other side. You're listening to UAP Crossfire, Chris DiPerno, the Devil Dog, Dan the Padre Carlson, Decker the Silverback, and myself, Commander Cobra. We'll be back in 3-4 minutes.
Over 240 million calls are made annually to 911. Fire, EMS, and police are then met with the same problem. The address of the residence or location is not sufficiently marked for responders to find it quickly during an emergency. That delay can mean the difference between life or death to you or your loved ones. When activated, the Locator 911 bulb converts to a strobing, color-changing beacon, identifying the exact location. Go to fast911help.com now to purchase your bulb today. fast911help.com.
Well, welcome back to UAP Crossfire. I'm going to start this section off with a little bit of an opening statement. It connects with, is Donald Trump the key to disclosure, as the word has been used in the part, but I'm going to add one or two more pieces to this. Is there a possibility that everything that we're seeing that is happening right now, the strikes in Nigeria to save the Christians that were being slaughtered right around Christmas, the takedown of Venezuela and the ability to get control of the oil field, the pushing of the PRC out of the Panama Canal, and now the operation that's going on, Epic Fury, in the Middle East. Are these all connected leading up to disclosure? Is Donald Trump doing this on purpose? Is he positioning us and reorging the world order, the structure, as they'd like to talk about. Because, Chris, you made a very interesting remark when we were on the break and watching the commercials on the break. I got to thinking, if disclosure came out and you had a nation that has nuclear-tipped missiles that go a lot further than they ever confessed until operations occurred, would they take this as the signal to kick everything off for a particular religion's return of their savior and the establishment of a peace on earth structure? What I'm getting at is this all connected? Are we positioning and preparing ourselves? Are we setting this up? Are we reorganizing this to keep things together when this comes out? Because it could be very unbalancing. And one more tiny thing I'd like to throw in. I've made mention this over the years we've been together. There was a joke with one of my economics and history professors back in the last century when I went to college, that one of the reasons World War I was fought is because Coca-Cola needed to get control of the distributorship. They had set up a distributorship where they weren't making money. And after World War I and all the old agreements were wiped clean, they were able to reestablish distribution in a much more financially suitable way of doing business. And he had a pretty good way of explaining how everything went. You know, how they franchised out, wasn't making that money, and then it did by this. And it was a byproduct, obviously, of what went on there. Is that what we're up against? We have a huge debt in this country. It is, to me, the number one national security issue that we have, growing by the second. Does spending wildly, getting everything squared, cleaning up messes, taking out rogue nations, if you agree or disagree with me, I'm sorry if I use a term that offends anybody. Does that help you clean the slate when this comes out and say, okay, we're going to have a new monetary policy. All old debts have gone away. We're moving forward in a new age. This is where we're at. And we transition to that. Is it all connected?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're the one that's smirking and smiling.
It's almost like the mafia. If you get rid of the guy that's holding the debt, you don't have any debt anymore. I mean, mafia did that for years. I mean, if you think about it, they put a bullet in the back of the guy's head. Look, there's so much that here's the thing. So I've interviewed people with abduction. Now you're going to say, Chris, where the hell are you going with this? And they have.
No, I would never say it. I would yell it, but I would never just say it.
Right. A lot of people with abduction have always had dreams afterwards, and I've interviewed many of them with the same dream about fire, death, destruction, and nuclear war. And there is absolutely, and I think there's something in the Bible, Padre, that this time it's not going to be a flood, it's going to be by fire.
Yep.
Am I right about that?
Yep.
Okay, so now we got these people who are being abducted saying, all I can dream about now is nuclear war. I know something was downloaded into my head. I never talked about nuclear war before. And now I may think that this might be really, instead of thinking, well, these guys are kind of goofy, it might be real because there's certain things starting to come to light. Remember, I can't not dismiss it. At first, I thought this guy was a little crazy saying this, but Matt Gaetz come out and says there's hybridization processes going on with ETs and military people. All right, well, we've been seeing abductions and hybridization that these people have been talking about for years. Now they're talking about dreams of a nuclear war. So you might be on something, Commander. You know, if you got people dreaming about this, never dreamed about it before, if the Padre is saying that the next time Revelation happens or during Revelations, we're going to have down by fire, and people think that we're almost on the brink of a nuclear war. Is China going to get involved with the Middle East? Does it kick off there? Is Russia going to get involved? You know, there's something to all this.
Yes, there is. There certainly is. I believe that we are accelerating toward a climax in human history. I believe that climax is what is known in the Bible as the end times, or the end of days, the end of the age. And there's a whole lot that has to happen leading up to that. And as we look at the world stage right now, we are seeing a lot of that going on. To touch on Commander Cobra's comment, the wild side of Islam, those who are the Twelvers, those who are looking for the return of the Mahdi, they sincerely believe that the Mahdi will come, their Messiah, if you will, at a time when the world has descended into absolute chaos. And those of the extreme wing of that belief think that by promoting chaos, they can speed the return of the Mahdi. So you've got that. There are Christians, again, I would put them on the fringe of Christian theology, who believe that, yes, we too should be accelerating chaos to hasten the return of Jesus. Millions, no, billions of people around the world are looking for something or someone to set straight an irretrievably broken system. And that involves global debt, it involves wars, it involves famine and disease and violence, the likes of which the Bible says have not been seen in the history of humanity up until that time. Into that will come an individual or group of individuals who will promise to make everything right, and initially will indeed appear to do so, but at a terrible price. And that terrible price is individual freedom, individual thought, individual worship. Everyone will have to align to their way of thinking, and if you do not, well, the Bible says that you will be killed.
Just like in Great Britain today.
Well, they haven't started the executions yet, to my knowledge, but it's, we're seeing the downfall of Europe.
They started them in Iran. They killed 30,000 of their own people because they didn't have that belief.
Right, which is a demonstration that that mindset still exists in large swathes of humanity. And I think that we all have to ask ourselves this question. There are those who sincerely say that they believe that the human heart is good, that deep down everybody is good, and we just need to find a way to stop their oppression or stop whatever it is that's making them do bad things. The Bible says the human heart is wicked. It is deceitful among all things. We are evil. And look at history to tell you that. We have our finer points, but we always descend into evil, chaos, and violence. And to the commander's point, this is going to occur on an increasingly global scale, at which point I happen to believe we will see whoever or whatever is controlling the UAPs align themselves with an individual who is part of some cabal or whatever it is that's pulling the strings, and will swear to usher in the new golden age of humanity. And at that point, well, all bets are off, because I think that things are going to go very badly.
You're talking the Antichrist.
I am. And I'm increasingly beginning to believe that the Antichrist will be supported and are bolstered by what we would consider alien or interdimensional, or from my perspective, spiritual, in a sense, beings. You know, we see in Revelation beings that look like frogs coming up from the depths of the ocean, intelligent life coming up from the depths. And, you know, USOs are increasing in their being reported and studied and tracked with our submarines and our sonar data. There's stuff down there, and I wouldn't doubt, but there might be a base or two under the ocean that we will see stuff come up out of to be part of this salvation of the earth. But let's not forget what Bob Lazar said we are to them: containers. That's all, just containers. Doesn't say containers of what. I believe we contain a soul, and that this whole cosmic conflict is for the souls of humanity.
Decker?
I have been seeing a lot of chatter recently, and I'm talking about very recently, of people suggesting that in lieu of all of this disclosure chatter, that there is going to be an attempt to fake an alien invasion. Now, I've been hearing stories like that going back almost 40 years. Could it happen? Well, I don't discount the possibility that it could happen. Also, loose nukes. Now, I've also heard a contingent of people suggesting that seeing what has happened with our own national security state and nuclear weapons, UFOs involving themselves on nuclear bases, that the ETs or whatever they are would not allow the discharge of nuclear weapons. You know, going back to the 50s, all right, during the contactee phase of the UFO field at that time, and there were some people out there that had some incredible stories, all right? But one of the things that was suggested during that period of time is that every time we tested, not only us, but the Soviet Union at that time, tested a nuclear weapon, that it interfered with the cosmos. Now, that never made sense to me. But then I started thinking a little outside the box. Well, maybe not in the cosmos, but what about if some of these visitors are not only extraterrestrial, but, Chris, interdimensional? Now, would a nuke affect other dimensions? And I would not put that beyond the bounds of possibility. Perhaps that is one of the reasons that there's always been an undercurrent coming from the Space Brothers to get rid of our nukes. Now, of course, if we got rid of ours, who's going to tell the Russians, the Chinese, or the North Koreans that they got to get rid of theirs? And would they even listen? I don't think so. So that's always been a non-starter, but that's basically where I come down on this.
I have a question for Mr. Deckard. The fake alien invasion, from your sources, what is the purpose of that? Why do that?
Oh, that's easy. One world government.
Okay, so it's to unite everybody against a common threat.
Enemy.
Okay.
Common threat,
Okay.
common enemy, sure.
Could that be the dragon of the final book? Who knows? I think that there's a possibility. One thing I want to say, Decker, I've never bought the whole nukes going off, sending a signal into space. You know, that never made sense. But if we talk about portals, if we talk about interdimensionality, if we talk about that, and you have entry and exit portals that are on this planet and go to other places, now you change. It's sort of like having the microphone and speaker out there, that you now have this go off. Now it does signal. It does have a means to do that, and it might also tell you the warning. Hey, when you go through that portal, be ready, because they've goofed some stuff up. There's some contaminants on the other side of it when you get there. All right, I want to talk about the next piece. Amanda, if you could bring up the good doctor. I want to say Scottish. I think hopefully I'm saying his name correctly.
Peter Skafish.
Skafish, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us are, all four of us are familiar with very, very credible claims coming from people in a position to know, who say they know, that there has been a contact event, a very explicit very manifest, obvious contact event, nothing that was liminal or elusive, that, something like a landing and an interaction. To me, if that happened, that means most likely there was an interaction with something quite like us that does have political interests, that does have probably has law, probably has ethics, maybe very different from us, in which there's a great asymmetry of power and technology. And I don't know how you narrate that. I mean, while telling the truth. And I don't know how you narrate it the way it's been narrated to us, as if it just happened once. I have a very hard time believing that if that happened once, it didn't happen several times. But the version we've all heard is that it happened once. And what's implausible to me is not that it happened. It's that it would happen one single time, and then the interaction stops. Unless you really had no control of the interaction, you certainly would be attempting to have further interactions, further conversation, further discussion.
So, Chris, I'm going to start with you. Your reaction.
Well, do I think there has been contact with governments and individual people? Yes, absolutely. Do I think that they have made contact and made agreements? I that's the one part I don't understand why they would do that. They don't have to make an agreement with us. They can just do what they want. They have the power to do that. And so when they talk about Eisenhower making agreements, could have happened. I wouldn't rule anything out. But here, let me just throw this out there. Suppose you made an agreement to say, hey, listen, we're going to allow you abductions, which the Eisenhower thing is. We're going to allow you a certain amount of abductions. You're going to do a hybridization process. You're going to create hybridization because, and I remember what Elon Musk says, that we have to colonize another planet because this planet will eventually die. So if we're hybridization, maybe we are hybridization a new set of species in order to adapt to Mars or adapt to another planet. That's not out of the realm of possibility, because we all believe abductions are happening. We believe that there's a hybridization process. That might be the secret that Don says that they might not want out. That's my thought.
Audrey?
Okay, this might seem out there to some people, but bear with me.
I can't believe we had to put a disclaimer in. You think this is going to be the only point?
Okay, so there is a history of humanity, specifically human leaders, interacting with off-world intelligences and trading humans for technology. This is what is outlined in the book of Enoch. It's outlined in Genesis chapter 6, where these beings called the sons of God, Enoch calls them the Watchers, part of the angelic hierarchy, but nonetheless physical entities, come to earth and take for themselves females for their wives and breed an offspring called the Nephilim. These are hybrids, and their experiment goes terribly. Not only that, the Book of Enoch says that they also did the same thing with animals, creating chimeras, crosses between humans and animals. Now, Enoch is not regarded as canonical scripture, but it was at the time considered, the time it was written, to be such. And so we have to put ourselves in that mindset. Fast forward through the centuries, there have been interactions with non-human intelligence, let's put it this way, that have resulted in an explosion of technology. The word inspiration, as I've said a few weeks ago, means to be filled with a spirit. And so it used to be, this word came about in the Middle Ages when something unique, a new invention would come forward. And there was a lot of invention during the Renaissance. They would say that person's inspired. And today we say it when we see a fine musical performance or a piece of artwork. That person was inspired. Well, inspiration, I think, took place during World War II in Nazi Germany, when the Nazis, heavily into the occult and pagan rituals, opened a portal. And in exchange for what they thought was going to be help in conquering the world and eliminating the Jews, the people of God, that they were given technology. And some of that technology survived the war. I'm talking about advancements in rocketry and jet engines and so forth, and also in aerodynamic design. I mean, look at some of the aircraft that we found in Germany, say like the, what was it? The Horten Gotha, I think was the aircraft, a flying wing design. And compare it to the Northrop flying wing of the 1950s or 60s, and then compare it to the B-2. Some of this technology is there today. And I think that throughout history, deals have been made with non-human intelligence to exchange human beings in exchange for technology. And all of that is to supplant humans as the dominant species on Earth and eradicate the beings that we are, created in the image of God, in favor of a race of beings that does not bear his image.
Decker.
There's no doubt in my mind that there has been contact between government representatives and these visitors, regardless of where they're from. We've all heard the stories about the Nordics or the tall whites that offered basically a paradise world. The only caveat was we had to get rid of our nukes. Okay, this was allegedly a meeting with Eisenhower. However, we said, no, we can't do that. Then the Greys, okay, showed up and they said, well, you can keep your nukes. All we want to do is some of this animal mutilation. We may do some abductions. We'll bring the people back, et cetera, crap, okay? Now, when I entered the field in the late 80s, the prevailing thought was, and it came primarily from two people, all right? First was John Lear, all right, with his paper that he wrote, where he alleged in his paper that there had been a basic contact between humans and aliens, and we signed an agreement. Then another guy came along by the name of Bill Cooper, who claimed that, yeah, this happened, but, okay, this was all totally illegal, okay? And the two of them at the time, and we're talking circa 1989, 1990, tried to get a petition going to present it to the Congress of the United States. Well, this never went anywhere, but these are not new concepts. Now, do I think that there's any relevance to this? Well, I think there could be some relevance to it. But like so many things in this field that I've experienced over the years, all these fantastical stories that I've been exposed to in all these years, I wasn't there, okay? I don't know. But if you want to convince me of something, I need to see the evidence. And in this field, that's the one thing that normally is sorely lacking from top to bottom, is evidence. So I gotta say, a lot of this I'm gonna basically at this point, I'm gonna keep in my gray box. I'm not gonna say, no, it couldn't happen. And I'm not gonna say, yeah, I buy into that. I will say, I'm not sure.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to the Libertarian Times, please, Amanda. Pop up the pictures. So, an interesting piece that I brought up, directly to the name of our show. Next pick, if you don't mind, that was in that set. I thought this was kind of a fun one because I think it goes back to a long-standing discussion that has been at the edge of this, and that is all our governments use this and use activity and use the UFO, UAP interest, phenomenon, reaction, dialogue as a means to cover up activities that are going on. Chris?
Yeah, sure. I agree. Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's flying around in the skies that are ours that, have been classified or been reported as UFOs. So, I mean, why not, say, hey, we got a new special black project drone, or we got the remote controlled this, or, whatever. Blame it on a UFO if we want to keep it secret. I mean, we've talked about that before. I mean, we've had sightings in New Jersey. Everybody goes, oh, it might be this, it might be that. I thought they were drones sniffing for radiation.
That story was leaked out. It was put into the press. They talked about the theft of some materials, medical grade, right? That was there.
Right. So, I mean, why not use obviously we got stuff flying in the sky that we want to keep secret. And anybody knows that more than you.
Hold that for 1 second, Amanda, on the screen, and everybody react. I mean, this is kind of what Decker was talking about on the last section we were speaking of. We don't always put real evidence and an intellectual rigor against it, and that's fine. As I've told you all before, I don't have to have evidence to believe what I believe. An invisible God to many people, that there are extraterrestrials. I'm pretty sure that we've had encounters, but I don't believe everything that people come to me and say, well, this is what happened, or this is what's going on. And to go back to Padre's earlier remark about, we've got to get things straight out in DC, I'm going to go one step further. All politics is local. All UAP UFO discussion is local. How is your local government performing? This fraud, this fraud business is all over the United States.
Oh, out here in California, we're peachy.
Yes, you are. Yeah. Peachy is exactly the word I was going to use. There's a funny story in my family about peaches. I'll have to tell you guys off air sometime. You'll enjoy the joke. Not probably the most appropriate, nor does it fit real well here. So, Padre, what's your take on this? Do you get any strong feelings one way or the other?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we just had a local election here for city council, and my councilman wasn't on the ballot. So of those who were eligible to vote in this election, 11% voted. I mean, what does that tell us? That people are fed up with the system. They've lost faith in the system. They've lost faith in the whole election process. And then that leaves us to get what we deserve when it comes to our leaders. We talked earlier, I think it was Chris who mentioned that Congressman Burchell is saying that you don't get a seat on a committee unless you raise $2 million for your political party. And that means every one of them has to go out and support the corrupt structure that is in place. That's all not going to change. And the whole UAP thing won't change unless we do as basically Jesus told us, and that's say, you do what you need to do in order to treat everybody as you want to be treated and love God. Do those two things and everything will be okay. But instead now we seem to have people throughout our society who, instead of treating others the way they want to be treated, are looking to see who can grab as much money as possible before the world implodes. and padding their pockets and living opulent lifestyles off the taxpayers. And then we see all of this stuff in the various states. Recently California, was it Minnesota, and I'm sure we have some here in South Dakota too. So it is incumbent upon each one of us to be the highest in moral character that we can be. And part of that does mean exposing corruption when you see it. I mean, if you know of a case and you can bring it forward and you have the evidence, it's just like the whole UAP thing. If you have the evidence, bring it forward and let something happen. Sadly, I think that we've gotten so corrupt at the national level that they could bring, look at this recent congressman who just had to resign because of his corrupt moral character.
That's two representatives. One's going to resign at the time of this recording at 11:59 this evening, Eastern time.
And so there you've got two people who millions of dollars were spent to install them in office when it was clearly known to their political parties that they were corrupt and they didn't do anything about it. So with UAP, we're not going to be able to get disclosure or any more information until somebody comes to the fore and says, I don't care about my party. I don't care about politics. I don't care about my own life. I'm willing to say what needs to be said, and here's the evidence.
Decker,
Well, if
I was going to say,
I
dovetail onto that because I can tell, I can see it on your face.
Yeah, 13 years ago, roughly, about the time that now former Congressperson Swalwell entered Congress, I stumbled across a thread. It was an online chat, and honest to God, I don't remember anymore where it was, but he was arguing, Swalwell was arguing with a guy who was defending the Second Amendment, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And Swalwell was totally against that. He thought the only people that should have firearms were police and the government. Well, we saw how that ended up in Europe in World War II, didn't we?
Or Iran right now.
Or Iran right now. You're perfectly correct. And anyway, this guy zinged Swalwell on a couple of points, and Swalwell got back to him with something that has never left me. He told this citizen, and remember, this guy at that time was a U.S. representative. He told this citizen, well, don't you forget, we got the nukes. Now, in any other venue, I think that should have been enough to drive this clown out of office then. He was threatening a United States citizen who was standing up for a U.S. constitutional guarantee, all right, that the founders put in place exactly to counter assholes like Swalwell, okay? Now, that stuck with me. And I told my wife about this. The first time I told her, she couldn't believe that. And I said, sweetheart, I was there. I saw it. So, I don't know. It's a horrible thing. What the hell was your original question?
I think you've answered it, whatever it was. All right. We're going to change gears just a tiny bit. I want to go to...
Hey, I didn't get a chance to answer.
Yeah, you did. You started out. I talked to you first.
Okay.
You can see it on the show when you watch the show. I encourage everyone to watch and subscribe to our show, including the co-hosts. Now, safe aerospace, the encounter. Could we bring that one up, please, Amanda? I brought this up because I don't want the whole fireball thing to come back up again, but we have had a lot of discussions about the molten mercury morphing surface accelerating. This is a fairly recent report. I don't know if we have another piece to it. And then the organization I don't know if I've got the proper name, but it's the Safe Aerospace. I'm sorry, I lost my track on that one. I was very, very interested to see that. Here's the question I want to ask, the point that I like the reaction to. And I'll start with you, Chris, since you feel left out.
Go ahead.
Why aren't we seeing more of these encounters with airplanes?
I mean, since man has been flying, I think we've had encounters, and I think it's just something that we've seen through World War II. Before World War II, World War I, there were reports. We've seen things flying ever since we've been in the air. They've been in the air, even before that.
Oh, sure. It goes all the way back to biblical recordings. Yeah. We've talked about it in times past, things that are recorded in artwork. Sure.
The one thing that gets me that it's taken this long for us to not only acknowledge that, but allow pilots to report what they've seen. Because we have, in the past, we have tortured pilots if they opened up and they talked about.
Then why are we seeing less now that things have opened up?
Well, I think it's maybe, here's the thing. You get a lot of reports when you have something on television. I've seen this when we took reports when I was state director of MUFON. If we saw something like a congressional hearing or something, we would be inundated, flooded with reports. Oh, yeah, I want to go out and see, and I saw this and I saw that. So it could be that, well, pilots either just say, you know what, it's just not the time of trouble. It's a hassle for me to do it. I'm just not going to say anything. So a lot of times they'll do that. A lot of times that you get lulls, and we've seen UFO reports spike up and then start to spike down, and you have a time that you don't get a lot of reports. Then all of a sudden they'll start spiking up again. I mean, we're working on their timetable, not ours. So maybe they're not just visiting us as much as they want to at this point in time. Maybe they said, hey, listen, we'll wait a few years and see what the humans are doing next.
Padre?
Well, these pilots who reported this are not any slouches. I think they were ex-military, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, it's correct.
Fighter pilots, F-18s. And I had a couple of questions this, and I think, Commander, you'd be the one to help me answer. In this report, the ground control said that they had been seeing this thing pop up occasionally through the day. Isn't it, and it's been 4 decades since I was pilot in command of an aircraft, but back in the day, didn't they have something called a NOTAM or a notice to airmen or something that they would put out and say, hey, traffic, be aware that there's something that keeps popping up in this particular part of our airspace, and keep your eyes peeled for it. And if not, what is the procedure these days, Commander, for pilots? We say the stigma has been largely lifted, but is that really true?
I think it has. I think the stigma has been lifted, especially the way the Navy has handled it by formalizing and then publicly putting out the reporting process that they want flight crews to use.
Not with the U.S. Air Force.
Well, I think they're following the same thing, but I haven't seen that same, correct, Don, I haven't seen that same thing coming out. But to answer your question, first of all, what you heard them say, that they had activity popping up over there, if it's not getting in the way, the NOTAMs usually are something that's orchestrated. It would take something much more like a series of reports, a number of airplanes, a number of aircraft in that area reporting, hey, look, we've got activity over here, and now they're going to put a restriction, a temporary restriction up over it of some kind. Or you may check to find out that there's something going on the ground that should have been NOTAM, and they're going to put a temporary restriction up. And it would, in today's air traffic control world, although there are a lot of antiquated parts of it, you can very quickly put the dot on the map, the circle, the circumference around that, and close out that area. They do it all the time. They call it TFRs for sporting events, VIP movements, anything that's got national security going on with that. And it shows up on, like if you have a handheld navigation device, it's going to show up on there if you connect it with it properly. All those things are there. So those things would happen. Given the fact, I'll give you the case when I told you guys years back when I was flying back from the Long Beach, California area, flying it back into Nevada. We had done offshore test work for an outfit out there. We're coming back, and a large drone was pretty much just hovering, and it was hovering right at altitudes that we would use at the VFR. Depending on which way you're going, you fly the 1,000 foot plus 500 altitude. And it was almost right within that. Kind of tells me that whoever was operating it was probably trying to actually be at those altitudes, thinking that somehow they were doing the right thing. This is long before we've really formalized the drone piloting and flying program going on. I made the report because it basically, I just missed hitting it because I didn't see it until I was on top of it. It was just, I could see it pretty clearly. How come I didn't get a picture? Because I didn't have my phone in my hand. I didn't have anything on to take the picture. I mean, those kinds of things are realistic. But when I announced that and I stayed on frequency, a couple other people said they were in that area, thought they had seen something, and now air traffic control is starting to warn people as they approach that area. And they're going to start vectoring people around it to avoid having something cataclysmic. And then ultimately hope that that report may filter down to and actually go to a sheriff's department to go out and take a look at it. Maybe the FAA is going to investigate to find out if somebody's doing that. And then, of course, you saw what happened when people were flying drones near airports. That's, now that's been very formalized. You have to have licenses. Licenses mean that if you recklessly operate an aircraft of any kind, you are going to be penalized for that and are liable for anything that goes wrong. Diverting airplanes because of that. All those kind of things there. It's a criminal activity. So that's really what goes behind it. And the process, it doesn't surprise me that they reported it, but I just think that the description of what they saw, the background of the folks that were driving this aircraft, its behavior, very tic-tacish to me in its behavior. And once again, we have this bending of light kind of thing that goes on around it, once again showing up. I just think it's a kind of an unusual spot. I know the airfield, that part of Texas, I mean, there's a lot of spots to be flying if you're doing some kind of research or some kind of test work. Yes, sir?
That area houses a good deal of oil and gas refining, doesn't it?
It does. And a lot of people that are in charge of those companies, a lot of former high-ranking government officials. It just seems like a surprising place to be doing it. That's all to me.
In this day and age, I mean, with with what's going on in Strait of Hormuz, maybe a foreign drone operator might have a particular interest in conducting some reconnaissance in that area.
It seemed like a pretty unusual operation or a vehicle that was being used there. So I'm glad we could throw that out. One of my favorite people, and don't worry, we may go a little long, folks. Hang with us because we've got a couple to go. Since we're recording, I don't really worry about the time limit. I'll pay overtime to everybody that has to stay longer. I believe we have an Avi Loeb piece.
Ooh, that's pretty. That's gorgeous.
It's an interesting to see it as a crescent. I would give anything to be able to do that, even with a bad toilet. I would put up with that for that. God knows I've had bad toilet situations on ships and field conditions, and I didn't get to see the Earth looking like that. I want to make a quick remark. We can talk about Avi, my favorite scientist, as everyone knows who follows the show. That's a facetious and sarcasm for those that don't follow the show. I was amazed for there was the great ad that iPhones got when the astronauts, they were emphasizing that they were using iPhones to take a lot of those pictures. Thoughts?
How much did they pay for the branding?
Yeah. Did they get the iPhones for free?
What kind of plan do you have for that? I mean, really, what kind of a plan do you have for that? Are you using Starlink to connect to the capsule, to get to do signal, to get all that to work? I mean, I just think it's pretty amazing that they threw the brand out there. There was something else that happened during the mission. Something floated by, and I forgot what food product it was. Maybe it was the chocolate spread, Nutella. I think it was Nutella that went by. Nutella floated by. Bam. How do you? I mean, you literally out of the world advertising, huh?
But wait a minute, Commander. Go back to the Apollo program. Remember Tang?
Oh God! Yeah.
Remember
Tang?
Space food sticks?
Oh
Remember
yeah.
Those
obviously
things?
They didn't kill you because I ate my share of them because I figured if I ate those and drank Tang, I was getting into the space program, so it didn't kill me.
Yeah, and you almost
may have
made
affected
it,
me a little bit, but it didn't kill me.
Boy,
so
Tang
how
was-
long do you think it's going to be before we see spacesuits with like the NASCAR patches on the uniforms, with the various sponsors?
All right. We're making light of this, but you bring up a very good point, because I think the reason that we're coming out of the drought is that we're going to see more privatization going on here and not strictly a government enterprise. We didn't settle the United States for good or for bad. I'm not going to get into that whole debate, because we had government wagons. We had people that got wagons, banded up, and went out west. It was private enterprise that did that. That's the reason why the first space shuttle was called Enterprise, because all the Star Trekkies wanted the first one to be named after the Enterprise from the TV show. And the reason that got its name was Enterprise was a critical name in the history of the United States. Enterprise is what was going to bring us to the stars. So, any other quick remarks about the moon? We talked a little bit about the far side and the lights. Decker?
Like I said at the beginning of the show, I want to see some close-ups of the backside of the moon. And I think that will probably not happen. Now, not necessarily because they think people might see something they shouldn't. But, how long has it been since the government in mass have really listened to what the people had to say? It's been a while.
If ever. Chris?
Well, first, I just got to say, I got this vision of a space capsule with mobile on the side and another sticker that says Hershey.
I mean, mobile would be nice because then you have Pegasus. I mean, that's a nice touch.
Yeah. I mean, it like the Padre says, it's going to be like NASCAR. We're going to be putting all these stickers up on space capsule as sponsors and stuff. Yeah, Apple and everything else. Anyways.
Well, maybe whoever does like the septic systems could get a little action in here too, since we've talked so much about that. Just saying.
Do they still make Tang?
I think so. Yeah, they make a Tang. They make a Tang. Yeah, absolutely.
So I haven't seen it on the shelves, but yeah, I would imagine that they got some kind of brand like that, Don. Yeah. What was your question, Commander? Let me get back on track for you.
Well, anything left on this particular part, because I want to move to this last section. It'll maybe drive us a little bit past the top of our hour.
I think space will become commercialized. I think we'll see a lot of companies either do advertising or do it. I could see Elon Musk saying, "Hey, why don't we do this?" I mean, he's a smart man. If he can make a buck, he'll make a buck out of it.
Look, he's building the moon.
He's more than just making the buck. I mean, he likes to make the buck because he's got a plan what he wants to do next with those bucks. Right. Go ahead, Don, Padre.
He's hoping to have a moon base by what, 2030? Is that what he's saying?
Yes.
You can't tell me that Burger King, McDonald's, Hardee's, those are not in contact with his marketing team to be the first fast food franchise on the moon.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that that already they've got somebody in marketing working.
All right, Amanda, you got to put that up on the screen.
I got that moon.
Yeah, got to put it up on the screen, Amanda.
Yeah.
Especially after what happened at the White House. Moon Dash. There you go, right there. And it's tax-free, folks. It's tax-free. If you don't forget to tip your Moon Dash.
Tip your astronaut.
Tip your astronaut. It's tax-free.
When will my pizza be there? In about 4 days.
Well, we'll send it out frozen.
Yeah, just
it'll warm up when you get there. All right, let's go to that last piece that's got the basically the 100-year history part, if you don't mind, please. So, a decent article. I hope you guys got a chance to look at it. It chronologically goes through, starting with 1947. But I have to say, I'm going to take exception right at the start with this nearly 100 years. So it's quiz time. I've talked about this in the past. What's the first recorded UAP, UFO activity in the United States, in this continent?
Well, that's open for discussion.
Well, okay. I'm going to say the first one that's recorded. I'm not saying the one that's down on paper.
Well, there were reports coming in right at the beginning of the 20th century.
All right. I'm going to go a couple further back on you. 1639, Boston area. The guys that saw the white burning 2-yard wide part around it, it was recorded. It was a large light that was seen entering and going out of the water, slowly moving, then speeding up, disappearing. John Winthrop, a fairly famous historical character in the colonial days of New England, recorded it later in 44 and went very, very strong to say that these were men that were sober and of good judgment, that they weren't drunkards, that what they had experienced and seen, and there was other reports around it. It often gets dropped because we don't think that it matters. 1639 and seeing that activity here in this part of the globe. And you look back at the other things that we've talked about when Mufon Bob was with us, and we went through some of the historical artwork that records things that just don't seem to make sense, why they would have these types of aerial vehicles and the details that we talked about. So I'm surprised that we're saying nearly a century. And of course, everyone knows my stance that whatever happened in the Battle of Los Angeles in 42 actually probably should be the start point for some of this. But Amanda, can you throw a couple more of the, I think there's one more. There we go. Now, Project Sign and the Blue Book. And then where it says Hollywood jumps in, that's my backdrop for tonight. Flying saucers. Now, I got to tell you, if you haven't seen it, I suggest that you drink to really enjoy it. It was a very small production, but an interesting story behind it. The man that stars and directs in this particular movie, he claimed that when they were filming another movie in Alaska, they saw UFOs. There was UFO activity while they were up in the wilderness of Alaska filming a more Alaska adventure-themed movie of the 1950s, late 40s. And he used that as publicity and energy to get this project in the air. And there's basically a fight between the Russians and the United States, KGB and the CIA, to get control of this UFO vehicle that's there. I don't want to spoil it for those of you that want to go on YouTube to see it. Your thoughts, gentlemen, on that article taking us through? I thought it was a pretty nice chronological rundown that we went through, because it explains to me, or it brings in a very interesting part, that popular culture, especially movies, really started to peek in there and get things to go to show up. And as Decker said earlier in the show, we are now in the age of AI. How are we going to know what we are seeing is actual, or worse, what's going to be the reaction when you sit down with an abductee or a witness and they feed their data, their actions into the computer, and AI comes out and says, "This is what I think you saw." How are the rest of us going to react to that? Decker, I'll start with you. You look at like if you swallowed the cat, swallowed the bird there.
I gotta say, I'm look, my basic nature is I'm pretty skeptical. I know it's hard to believe, but it is true. And when it comes to AI, not only am I skeptical, I'm very distrustful. Okay. I see, look, even in the time that I've been in this field, late 80s, 90s, VHS tapes, video recorders, all that kind of stuff. I saw stuff that were, shall we say, phonied up a bit. And today with AI, look, the sky literally is the limit with that technology. And
no pun intended either, I guess.
Yeah, it would have to have some genuine bona fides for me to jump on board something like that.
Chris?
I agree with what Don's saying. AI is putting us in a whole new ball game where, I mean, we've gotten pictures where we say, my God, this is a great picture, and it turns out to be AI, but it's getting harder and harder to distinguish that. It's, and stuff where you have to send it to professionals. And so it's very hard to say this is a legitimate claim, this is a false claim, this is somebody who wants to get publicity. So it has put AI has put a wrench into reporting UFOs, and the documentation and the evidence, or I should say the photographic evidence of it. It's making it more and more difficult to find out what's really real and not. So I think I think AI is not going to be good for us as far as ufology.
So Padre, I'm going to throw the same thing to you, but I'm going to put one more twist. And I don't mean this to sound as church lady, and I'm picking on you because you're our resident man of the cloth here. But is this a tool of the devil? Is AI going to be one of the further things that undoes us, that's going to cause division, that's going to cause?
In answer to your question is twofold. Is it of the devil? It's a tool. And like any other tool or wonderful technology humanity has laid hands on, it will be used for evil, and it will also be used for good. I read a study on how pastors are using AI. There are actually about 20% of pastors now that just use it to write sermons. They'll just say, give me a sermon on this Bible passage. And then they go golfing or do whatever. I don't do that at all. I use it more along the lines of, where is the biblical text that refer to this topic? So like, say, a concordance.
Right.
It is a tremendous tool. I mean, it is amazing what you can find out, but you have to double check it. I would say that I have found errors in the answers it gives me probably 40% of the time, where I have
scary.
to go.
That is scary.
And so the thing that concerns me, guys, is not just how good AI is at showing us, say, images, but how bad we are at noticing. The ability, again, as we've talked about this before, for critical thinking, to look at something and immediately say, is that really what I'm looking at? And one of the things I use, and this is just the meteorologist in me, is I always look at what's going on in the background. What direction is the wind going? Where are the shadows? Does everything sync up like that? Because a lot of times that's where you will see the errors, and eventually they'll get rid of those. But there's some stuff out there that is so good. It's no wonder that Hollywood is freaking out, because you can make a almost Hollywood class movie in your den for yourself right now. I mean, we could make a whole anime series starring Amanda and put that on as a short story thing in this broadcast that we do, and we'd probably make some serious coin on it. But
don't forget, they're bringing the dead back to act again.
Right.
Yeah,
and you have people that are uploading their voices and personalities so that the bereaved can talk. Yeah. Oh, I disagree with that, Amanda. I disagree. That I think it would be a smash hit. Just remember us when you're on your way up. Just remember us that are on the escalator on the way going down, Amanda. That's all I ask.
And to what you were saying, Commander, Eric Schmidt, who used to be one of the senior guys at Google, he is very much working toward providing people the option for what he calls eternal life, where the contents of your brain will be downloaded to a hard drive and then can be uploaded for your future grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever, to talk to Commander Cobra. Right. And it'll be just like you're there with them.
Ain't going to happen. Sorry. I'll see you on the other side if you want to have the conversation.
There you go.
That ain't going to happen. So as we close and wrap this down, great show as always, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. Obviously, Amanda's wonderful, adroit skills in the background, manipulating this around, moving it, doing all the hard work, getting everything scheduled up, and of course, the greatest audience on the planet for watching. Couple things I did want to throw in there. We have a number of shows that we're putting out through Polaris Productions. That's who puts this great show together. Please drop us emails at uapcrossfire@gmail.com. Love to hear from folks. And be descriptive in the title if you have something in particular that you want to talk about, because we get a lot of stuff now on the website from TikTok, Facebook, people that like us, that's comments. It's really hard to keep up. So when I look for and to answer up, and when the rest of the team looks at it, we'd like to, if you have something in there, put a really good subject in there. Like, Commander Cobra, you really just, you completely destroyed that show. You were terrible. That will get my attention, and I can pay attention to it, and I can answer that up. Subscribe. That's a big part of what makes the world go round, and it would help us a lot if you do that. I'll let everybody have one run on the good nights. Chris, the Devil Dog.
I think it's a great show. I think we hit a lot of topics that were interesting, and it's good to be here. Thank you.
Padre.
As always, gentlemen, a wonderful evening, a time to sit and discuss the latest events in the UAP world. And to our wonderful viewers and listeners, don't forget that Don has requested close-up photos of your backside and moon, I think is what he was asking for. And you have there your UAP
No AI. Don wants the real thing. No AI. Decker, any clarification there?
Yes, spare me, please. This is actually not necessary, but hey, look, I'll tell you, as this time right now in downtown America is so crazy right now, I really look forward to doing tonight's show because I needed a little bit of normalcy in my life.
This is normal?
Well, it's better than the alternative.
Which has got its own kind of frightening aspect of this is the one that talks you off the ledge, Decker. Honestly, God. God help us. And God's peace to all of you, surpassing all knowledge and understanding. Thank you very much from the staff and team at UAP Crossfire, Polaris Productions. And please take a look at all the other great shows that are out there. We have a great group of folks that are doing that. Don't forget Supernatural Girls. We have a lot of crossover with them. So it's great that you can take a good look at them and support their show as well. Thanks. See you soon.